Good morning and welcome again to my study on this Wednesday morning. Tomorrow, Thursday, is the 6th of June, and this year marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Now, I'm a boomer. I'm part of the post-war bulge, born in 1946, just after the Second World War had ended. So for me and most of those people born around me, D-Day was something we knew about. Our parents did talk about it. It was a cardinal point in the Second World War. It was the point at which the Allied armies decided that they would re-invade Europe. The Americans, the British, Canadians, many other countries found together a huge army of young men, and it was young men. Some of them too young to actually be in the war, but they'd lied about their age, and the great majority were in their teens. And this massive army went over the Channel to fight a war which had been going on for, in their view, too long. The aim was to recapture France and move from there into the rest of Europe, which was occupied by Nazi Germany. The pictures that we're seeing this year, often helped by modern technology, show both the success and the horror of that event. It was successful, but it was successful thanks to these brave young men who were told not to run from bullets, but to run towards them. And so thousands died. But eventually it was successful. And we were able to go on and rid Europe of the Nazis. I don't know about you, but I've been watching programmes this week, last week, with the surviving people from that day. There aren't very many left, of course. They're all well into their, often hundreds. One gentleman, 105, still active, still doing his own washing in his wheelchair. Amazing. And many of them well into their 90s. But all of them remembering absolutely profoundly that day. And that day filled, yes, with success, but also with the terrible sadness of watching their friends, their colleagues killed and not being able to do anything about it, having to carry on. It's hard for me, and I suspect for many of us, to understand how that must have felt, that must have been for these people. So it's critically important that we do remember, that we do think about events and this critical event of D-Day. I read somewhere recently that only some 25% of young people know about World War II. This was the second war in that century that was going to end all wars. But of course, it hasn't. Humanity seems unable to learn from the terror and horrors that we find in war. I was really struck by one of the veterans who, at the end of his talk about what had happened, said, "I don't understand war. Nobody wins in war. Everybody loses." And I think that's a lesson that we find so hard to learn, yet it's so important. As once again, we find in Europe, there's a war going on. Ukraine, so sad to see the destruction, the horror, the death. And then in the Holy Land, we're seeing exactly the same. Across the world, humanity still has not learned that the only thing that comes from war is loss. So as we remember D-Day, as we celebrate D-Day, as we celebrate the magnificence of those young men, those people who helped us free Europe again, let us together pray for peace, God's peace across all of the world, his love, his peace, today, tomorrow, and always.